Moses, one of the most prominent figures in the Bible, played a crucial role in the liberation of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt and their journey towards the Promised Land. Born during a time when the Pharaoh ordered the killing of Hebrew baby boys, Moses' mother saved him by placing him in a basket on the Nile River. Miraculously, Pharaoh's daughter discovered the baby and raised him as her own, giving him the name Moses. As Moses grew older, he witnessed the suffering of his people, the Israelites, who toiled as slaves under Egyptian rule. One day, while Moses was tending to his flock, he encountered a burning bush. To his astonishment, the voice of God emanated from the bush, instructing him to go to Pharaoh and demand the release of the Israelites. God revealed his name as Yahweh and informed Moses that he had heard the cries of his people and would lead them to a land flowing with milk and honey. Reluctant at first, Moses questioned his own abilities to carry out such a monumental task. However, God assured him that he would be with Moses every step of the way. Accompanied by his brother Aaron, Moses confronted Pharaoh, demanding the freedom of the Israelites. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he refused to release them, causing God to send a series of 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt. These plagues, including turning the Nile River to blood, a plague of frogs, gnats, flies, livestock disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and the death of the firstborn, were intended to display God's power and convince Pharaoh to relent. It was only after the final plague, where the firstborn of every Egyptian household was killed, that Pharaoh finally relented. Devastated by the loss of his own son, he ordered the Israelites to leave Egypt. With the Egyptian army in pursuit, the Israelites reached the Red Sea. Trapped between the sea and their pursuers, Moses turned to God for help. In a remarkable display of divine intervention, God commanded Moses to stretch out his staff, and the waters of the sea parted, creating a dry path through the sea. The Israelites crossed safely, but as soon as Pharaoh's army entered the parted sea, the waters crashed back together, drowning the entire army. Having witnessed these miraculous events, the Israelites were filled with awe and gratitude towards God. Moses led them through the wilderness towards Mount Sinai. On the mountain, Moses received the 10 Commandments directly from God, etched on stone tablets. These commandments would serve as the foundation of the Israelites' moral and religious practices. During their journey, the Israelites faced numerous challenges, including scarcity of food and water. Yet, God provided for them, sending manna from heaven and water from a rock. However, the Israelites often grumbled and questioned God's provisions, which led to moments of punishment and testing. While Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the commandments, the Israelites grew impatient and created a golden calf to worship. Moses, filled with righteous anger, threw the tablets to the ground, breaking them. He then confronted the people, destroyed the golden calf, and called upon those who were faithful to God to join him. The Levites answered his call, and Moses commanded them to execute the idolaters, resulting in the deaths of 3,000 people. Afterward, Moses pleaded with God on behalf of the Israelites, asking for forgiveness and restoration. God agreed, and Moses ascended Mount Sinai once again, where he received a new set of stone tablets with the 10 Commandments. For the next 40 years, the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, their journey marked by both triumphs and trials. Moses, guided by God's presence in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, led the Israelites through the harsh conditions of the desert. Along the way, God provided them with sustenance, such as manna, quail, and water from unexpected sources. Despite God's continued provision and guidance, the Israelites often grumbled and rebelled against Moses' leadership. They longed for the comforts of Egypt and questioned God's faithfulness. Moses, as the intermediary between God and the people, interceded on their behalf, mediating their complaints and seeking God's mercy. One significant event during their journey was the episode of the 12 spies. Moses sent representatives from each tribe to scout out the land of Canaan, the Promised Land. After 40 days, the spies returned, and although the land was indeed abundant and fruitful, most of them expressed fear and doubt, reporting the presence of powerful inhabitants. Only Joshua and Caleb, 2 of the spies, held on to faith in God's promise and encouraged the people to trust in his provision. Unfortunately, the majority of the Israelites succumbed to fear and rebellion, refusing to enter the Promised Land. As a result, God declared that the entire generation that doubted him would perish in the wilderness and would not enter the land he had promised. Moses, along with Joshua and Caleb, were the exceptions and were chosen to lead the new generation into the Promised Land after the 40 years of wandering. During their time in the wilderness, Moses faced countless challenges as the leader of a large and often rebellious community. The people constantly complained about their conditions and even challenged Moses' authority. In one particular incident, Moses' sister Miriam and his brother Aaron spoke against him, criticizing his choice of a wife and questioning his authority as the sole prophet of God. In response, God punished Miriam with leprosy, teaching the people the importance of respecting Moses' role as a chosen leader. As the Israelites approached the end of their journey, Moses experienced one of the most significant trials of his life. The people complained about the lack of water, and in frustration, Moses struck a rock to bring forth water, disobeying God's command to speak to the rock. Due to this act of disobedience, God informed Moses that he would not be permitted to enter the Promised Land. Although Moses pleaded with God for forgiveness and begged for permission to enter the land, God remained firm in his decision. With his heart heavy and knowing he would not enter the Promised Land, Moses spent his final days preparing the new generation to enter the land and follow God's commandments. He reiterated the laws and regulations given by God, reminding the people of the consequences of obedience and disobedience. Moses appointed Joshua as his successor, ensuring a smooth transition of leadership. On the plains of Moab, overlooking the land he longed to enter, Moses delivered a powerful farewell address, known as the Book of Deuteronomy. In this speech, he recounted the journey of the Israelites, reiterated God's covenant with them, and urged the people to remain faithful to God as they entered the Promised Land. Moses reminded them of their history, the miracles God had performed, and the importance of obeying his commandments. After completing his address, Moses climbed Mount Nebo, where God showed him the entirety of the Promised Land. In his final moments, Moses passed away, alone on the mountaintop, at the age of 120. God himself buried Moses in an undisclosed location, and to this day his burial place remains a mystery. The legacy of Moses endured long after his death. He was revered as a great prophet and leader, chosen by God to deliver his people from bondage. Moses' life and teachings laid the foundation for the Israelite nation, shaping their identity, laws, and relationship with God. The impact of Moses' leadership extended beyond the Israelites. His story and the laws he received from God became foundational to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Ten Commandments in particular are considered a cornerstone of moral and ethical teachings across various faiths. Moses' role as a mediator between God and his people established a precedent for future prophets and religious leaders. His intimate relationship with God, evidenced through direct communication and divine revelations, set him apart as a unique figure in history. Throughout his life, Moses faced personal challenges and doubts. He struggled with his own insecurities, questioning his abilities and feeling the weight of the responsibility placed upon him. Yet through it all, Moses remained steadfast in his faith and commitment to God's plan. His humility and devotion to God are evident in his interactions with the Israelites. Despite their constant complaints and rebellion, Moses interceded on their behalf, displaying an unwavering love and concern for his people. He even pleaded with God to spare them from destruction and showed immense compassion when they strayed from the path. Moses' life also serves as a lesson in the consequences of disobedience. His act of striking the rock in frustration, rather than speaking to it as God had instructed, resulted in the loss of his privilege to enter the Promised Land. This incident emphasizes the importance of obedience and trust in God's commands. The story of Moses is a testament to God's faithfulness and his ability to use imperfect individuals to accomplish his purposes. Despite Moses' flaws and the challenges he faced, God worked through him to perform extraordinary miracles and lead his people to freedom. Moses' impact continues to be felt today. His story inspires countless individuals to stand up against injustice and to have faith in God's promises. His teachings continue to guide believers in their moral and spiritual lives, reminding them of the importance of obedience, humility, and unwavering faith in God. The life of Moses is a story of redemption, liberation, and the power of God's presence. It is a tale of a reluctant leader who, through God's guidance and strength, accomplished the impossible. Moses' journey from a helpless baby floating in a basket to the deliverer of a nation serves as a reminder that God can use anyone, regardless of their circumstances or perceived limitations, to bring about his plans and purposes in the world. Moses' legacy endures as a source of inspiration and a testament to the transformative power of faith and obedience. His life serves as a timeless example of how one person, with God by their side, can lead others out of bondage and towards a brighter future.